Hey, it's the Clockwork Mage, and this broadcast spell is live. Nice to be back for another episode of Ramblings of a Dungeon Master. So today we are going to be talking about Session 0, the very first session before any other session in a D&D campaign. So I'm going to be talking about both sides today, the DM and the player. I have more experience on the DM side, but hopefully I can still help out the players as well. So, what I really want to get started with is starting with the DM. The DM calls the shots for session 0 and already has a good, or should already have a good general idea of what the campaign is going to entail and where the campaign should take the players. With that, if you don't have that, get to it. You need to know what's going to be going on, and you need to have a rough idea of the events in the campaign and things that are likely to happen, or just general ideas of the campaign itself, including the setting, how many players you're going to have, how grimdark it's going to be, or if grimdark at all, if it's going to be a silly campaign, if it's going to be a serious one. These questions should already have good answers to them. If not, you should be asking your party members to answer them with you. If in the end you are able to improv it and do well, that's really good. And I've been emphasizing improv for a long time as a dungeon master, but this is one of the few things where you should not improv. It needs to be thought out. It needs to have something behind it. It's just common courtesy, not just for you, but for your players as well. As a DM, there are a few questions you should be asking your players when starting a campaign. The very first thing that I normally ask my players is, what type of campaign do we want to do? Do we want to have a long, epic Lord of the Rings quest? Do we want to have slice of life, where people are living their lives out as shopkeeps and maybe adventuring on the side? Or do we want to have mystery, a murder mystery kind of campaign, or political intrigue? Or hack and slash, to test out all of your new builds that you guys have been thinking of? It's a lot of those types of questions, and that is something I make sure to ask my players. That way we're all on the same page of what we want to do and how we want to do it. Of course, there can be conflicting answers between the players and other things like that, but in the end, this idea should be fixed, and you should be able to continue forward knowing that everyone agreed to this. I know some players may not agree, or some may throw a temper tantrum, but that'll be for another episode, talking on how players can kind of disagree with ideas and with each other, and basically just how to properly talk with your players. But to continue forward with session 0, I don't just think it's going to be a lot of easy questions either. Some of the questions can be very tough to deal with, especially if you have more mature themes in your setting. So, for example, a lot of people got into Dungeons & Dragons from Baldur's Gate, or I know some people have gotten into it from The Witcher. And both of those games have very mature themes in it. And it should be discussed with care on what mature themes everyone is okay with, if any at all. That is something that I've done for a very long time. I have always made sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone's okay with the idea of what's going to be happening in the campaign. But basically, if you get into any mature ideas or anything gory even, or something that could be traumatizing to some people or anything like that, you really need to discuss it beforehand. This needs to be something that needs to be talked about. And you can't tiptoe around it. You can't just hope that everyone's going to be okay, and you shouldn't assume that everyone's going to be okay with it. Again, D&D is a place to have fun. It's a place for all of your friends to gather and for you guys to have a good time. And I understand some parts can be tense and other things like that, but it shouldn't get to the point where people are just not having a good time anymore. I don't think that should ever happen, because of something that's going on in your story. Always, always, always ask for, even I would call it, ask for some consent on everyone being okay with the mature theme of how gory you're going to describe some of the things going on, or even some risque scenes that may happen in your campaign. Discuss if you're going to fade to black. Discuss if you guys really want to go into detail. Discuss if it would be better if the DM just took the player aside and talked to them, or talked out the scenario, or anything like that. It needs to be talked about. That's kind of the main thing when it comes to session 0, is understanding basically what everyone's going to want to do and what everyone's okay with. This also is where you would make characters, and helping the characters fit a theme is also going to help you a lot. For example, if you have an underwater theme, you better make sure to tell all your players they need to breathe underwater somehow. Or if you're doing some sort of, I don't know, say Star Wars campaign, and you're doing a Jedi group, you need to tell everyone, hey, you guys should be Jedi. If you're not going to be a Jedi, you will be at a disadvantage, because that's just how Star Wars is. It's kind of the rule of thumb of all Jedi or no Jedi. It's also worth discussing if everyone is going to be a good aligned player, or if there's some wiggle room to be neutral or evil. Me personally, whenever I'm making a campaign and it comes down to alignments, I am very clear. If we're in a good campaign, I expect everyone to be good, and if you are neutral, you are leaning good as a neutral character. If I'm playing an evil campaign, then you are an evil character, and if you're neutral, you are leaning evil. That's kind of how it should be. Everyone, in my opinion, should be relatively the same alignment. I know it can be a little frustrating to hear that at times, but it is necessary, especially if you want a cohesive game. I've ran many games as a DM where I let everyone just pick their own alignment, and if the majority of the party is one alignment and someone sticks out, then you're just ruining the fun for everyone. And it doesn't matter whether it's if everyone's good and then there's one evil, or if everyone's evil and there's one good. Either way, you are ruining the fun. It's not fun for everyone to have to fight you every single time they get into a game. And I think that it's really needed to have stricter alignment rules, in my opinion. I wanted to try to contradict myself there and think of a time when I had a player that was playing good and fit in with the evil players, or vice versa, but it's never worked out. I'm probably into the 20 campaign mark now, and I've had at least 3 campaigns end because of differing alignment issues and people just being lone wolves and not playing for the team. It's a serious problem, and I like to try to stop it before it gets out of hand. Another thing, so what? We've gone over setting, we've gone over alignment, we've gone over consent. By the way, people make consent sheets and stuff online. They are great resources. Use them, please. They are amazing, especially if you find a Google Docs one that makes everything anonymous as well. It's really, really superb. I suggest looking it up and trying to find some if you can. And then the last thing would be power level of the party. Actually, there's 2 things. Power level of the party and how much homebrew. So power level is kind of like, well, how strong are we making our characters? Are we trying to be completely like mathematically correct and have the biggest numbers we can get with the strongest players? Because if not everyone is around the same power level, there are people that are just not going to have fun in combat, or there are people that are not going to have fun out of combat, because it'll be left up to this party member that has a 20 in their charisma because they're a bard that did everything correct and used their starting money to buy a mask of charisma or something like that. Or you'll have someone over there that was making a fun character and they are an orc that stumbled into a wizard academy that he now is the worst class for learning magic as a wizard, but he's just making do, and anytime he runs out of spells, he says, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to use my spell punch from now on, and punches people in the face as a wizard. Like, that's not gonna compare to anything that's min-maxed or anything like that. You really have to discuss with the players and make sure everyone's on the same page about how strong everyone's going to be and what the expectations of the campaign with that strength is going to be as well. Lastly, homebrew. So I normally try to give some players a little trinket or something starting off. Mind you, I don't always start off at level 1. But I always try to give them something that they kind of made themselves and it's kind of special to them. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. So, for example, I've given someone... mind you, I play D&D 3.5, so the numbers are going to be a little different if you play 5th. I've given someone an item where as long as they're wearing this flower crown, they can weave with a +2 to it, right? But it was an artifact given to them from their mother and blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go into it, but just things like that where it is homebrew. There's nowhere in the book that there's an item that gives you that. But it's something that's sweet and it's something that makes their character more enjoyable for them, where they feel a stronger connection to their own backstory, if anything. I know some DMs are very strict with the starting rules. So they say, oh, buy the book, buy the numbers, buy the gold. That's what we're starting with. That's what we're doing. And that's okay too. But my point is this needs to be talked about and this needs to be discussed with your players. Now, to go to the player's side of this, and it's going to be much shorter than the DM's side. As a player, you got to play ball. You have to understand that everyone isn't going to want the same thing. And if you're in the minority of what things are wanted, then you have to accept that that may be the case. And the game might not be the game that you were looking for. And if that's the case, you can respectfully bow out, which I've done before. I've been at a session 0 and I was excited to play, but everyone wanted to play a different game than me. And I said, I'm sorry. I love the idea of playing. I love the idea of being a player, but I know I'm not going to have a good time and I don't want to ruin the fun for everyone else. So I'm going to step away and I really hope you guys have a great time. If not, then you have to come to accept that you are not playing the exact game that you wanted. And that's okay, because you can still find fun in it. You can still find those moments with your friends. You can still make things work. I know being a player and having vastly conflicting ideas with other players can be very tough at times. I've experienced it firsthand. I'm one about discussing it. I'm one about talking about it. Because I've also been at a session 0 where I was like, okay, I know you guys want to do this, but this is something else that I've been wanting to do and it's really close. Is there any way we can all discuss something and meet in the middle, or meet something that adds in a little bit of what I'm looking for? And most of the time, people are all for that. They're all for collaboration. They're all for making it fun for everyone. And if they're not, again, that's another discussion. We'll go into that another time. I'll make a video on it, I promise. Because I've dealt with that a lot too. But hopefully everyone is friends and everyone is trying to be nice to each other. So you guys can discuss an alternative. And don't be the player that tries to turn the campaign on its head. Don't be that player where it's like, okay, I know we all agreed on this, but now I want to do this instead. Don't do it. You're just gonna make everyone upset and you are not gonna be happy because no one else is wanting to do that. It was already discussed and everyone said they agreed on something else. So as a player, long story short, play ball. Try to be a team player. Try to cooperate with people, and the DMs, you guys should do the same. Try to cooperate with the players and try to see if you can make some compromises. Try to see if you can make the game fun for everyone. That's what Session 0 is all about. Making it fun for everyone and make sure everyone knows what to expect. Now, if you guys have any other ideas or ways that you, or things you even add to Session 0, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all later.